970 WGTK gives you Let's Talk with Dr. Stan Frager. From relationship problems to family feuds, he's got all the advice and expert help you'll need. Dr. Frager is here ready to lend an ear or a shoulder if you need it. Now, here's Dr. Stan Frager.
All right. Hi. Welcome, everyone. Time for our Sunday Night Family. And what do we do Sunday nights? We tell stories to our kids, and you're going to hear about some very interesting storytelling. Now, that on the surface, you go, storytelling, what's that got to do with mental health? Well, you know what? It has a lot to do. Let me tell you about somebody who's joining us right now. His name is Sean Buvala, and he's the father of 4 children, full-time storyteller. And that's kind of intriguing by itself. He has told stories and taught throughout the United States for over 25 years. He's director of the storytelling resource site. You can go to storyteller.net. And he's won several awards related to this. Has a fascinating book that he wrote, by the way. And you'll hear about that in a few minutes. It's called Daddy Teller, How to Be a Hero to Your Kids and Teach Them What's Really Important by Telling Them One Story at a Time. Not exactly a short title, but wonderfully descriptive. Daddy Teller, How to Be a Hero to Your Kids and Teach Them What's Really Important by Telling Them One Story at a Time. And also I've asked Dr. Karam, who is a licensed marriage family therapist and with the University of Louisville's Kent School of Social Work. He's a mental health professional. He's the president-elect of our Kentucky Association for Marriage and Family Therapy. And I have great fondness for our Kent School of Social Work, having been there for many years as a professor. So it's just great to have you with us, Dr. Karam. Appreciate you staying on.
It's great to be here.
Mr. Buvala, nice to have you with us. And I know we're going to give complimentary copy away for those who call in and talk with us. And I would love to hear from a parent your favorite story that you told your child, or one that you remember your parents telling you as a young person. Do you remember any stories that your mom or dad told you? If not, that's kind of sad in itself. And we'll get to that in a little while. Again, our lines are open, and we'll have a couple tickets for Abbey Roads. We just got lots of stuff for people who just want to call in and talk with us on the air. 571-2428 puts you right here. Mr. Buvala, great to have you with
Stan?
us. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be with you, and I listened in on your first hour, and after 20 years of being in youth work with families and teenagers, I was cheering as I was listening into your first hour about how important it is to communicate with our teenagers.
Thank you. And by the way, we're streamed everywhere in the world. You can go to Frager.com, click on Live Now, and we'll give a shout out to Amir, who's over in the Middle East and listens to us. And, parents are the same everywhere. We love our parents, and we want to love them more. And I know that storytelling that you describe is one of those communication ways of relating to our children.
I think one of the things that we're working really hard on doing is teaching parents to put the storybook down, to look their children in the eyes and tell them stories. And it's, as you said, as at the top of the hour when you opened, there's this, what, storytelling? Are you kidding me? But the power of communicating with our kids. If you want your children to listen to you at 14, you've got to start at 4. And that's the power of storytelling, building relationships. It transcends just the words you're saying.
I love that. If you want to be able to talk to them at 14, you better start at 4. So I think that's right on.
Yes, certainly. And I know, speaking as my therapist had, and also as someone that grew up with, my father was 50 years old when he had us, so I didn't get to know his parents or a lot of my family members, but these rich stories and around family and around culture were huge. And I feel like even though I didn't know these people, I grew up knowing that narrative, and it really is important, as Sean is saying, when you get to those teenage years, if you don't have a foundation to build on, it's hard for your teenager to take you seriously. But if you've been doing it, if you've been establishing, telling these stories, it makes it a lot easier when they get to the teenage years.
By the way, Mr. Buvala's book is very unique because he first tells you the whole story, and then you have those bullet points after the story that says, okay, here's the key elements. So you can kind of glance at the bullet points when you're telling the story to your child. And it gives you those main bullet points and things that you might want to do to emphasize and really make the story impactful. So it's really a guide of not only a great story, but then how to tell the story. I thought that was really unique and interesting.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think one of the problems that we have with people when I first suggest storytelling, and my book certainly is aimed at all parents, but it really is aimed at men. I mean, that's the direction it came from. And people are saying, but I can't memorize. They have this fear of memorization from whatever it is back in their lives. And what we're talking about with the brick and mortar process, the bullet points, is you don't ever memorize a story. You memorize what happens first, what happens second. You see it as a picture in your head, and then you tell that picture back to your kids. And it's not about can you get the same words that the guy wrote in the book, but can you tell a story to your kids? Can you look that kid in the eye? Can you bond with them? Can you build relationships with them? And you do that one step at a time.
Yep. And you think... And again, you emphasize, don't read the story to your child. Even if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. Tell the story.
Right. And there certainly is a place and a time for reading books to children. There's value, of course, to that. There's value in children learning that stuff on the page turns into words. There's tremendous value in that. There's tremendous value in knowing that those words stay the same all the time. However, as ancillary to that, and even as equal to that, the ability to put a book down and form stories with your children, because what will happen is those children that you're telling to will start telling stories back to you. And isn't that what we want? Isn't that what you talked about in the first hour, is children that know how to respond to their parents, that children that know that they're going to be listened to when they speak, children that know that when there's violence happening in their lives, that their parents are going to take them seriously? That starts with storytelling.
And of course, I mean, your book is designed for dads, but obviously moms can use it as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Any parent can pick it up and use that. We do write it in kind of a guide language a little bit, kind of write it from a coaching perspective. So that kind of has that feel to it. It's kind of one guy talking to another. But, I wrote that with the intention of speaking to my brothers, both literal and metaphorical, that you just can't give them these huge tomes of information and say, please pick something out of here and do it. My youngest brother at 25 years old has a 6-year-old, and he got a copy of the book for Christmas. Ta-da! And a few weeks later, he comes back to me and he says, you know that book that you gave me? I said, yeah. Did you read it? Oh, I read it. And you know what? I could actually use it.
You mean it really works?
No, his older brother's not crazy.
There you go. And again, the name of the book is Daddy Teller, How to Be a Hero to Your Kids and Teach Them what really is important by telling them one story at a time. We have complimentary copies for those who call in. And by the way, on your website, I know you indicate that you have a lot of good information.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff on the website. There's some free training videos. People can, and you don't have to register, just come and enjoy them. There's videos that train people how to do that. There's a download of a free chapter, and maybe later in the show, if you'd like, I'll tell you that story, and people can get a feel for that one. There's plenty of reference material there on the website at daddyteller.com.
Daddyteller.com, fair enough. And by the way, we're redoing our website, thefrager.com, and in about 2 weeks here, all of our programs on Sunday night will be podcasts, so you can download them. And Tony Safina, who is an incredible researcher for us, will have lots of websites, and every time we have a guest on with us on Sunday night, the person's name and link and contact information will all be up there, so it'll be very rich in resource. And, of course, we'll make sure that yours gets up there. So,
thank you.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about the power of storytelling. Somehow stories are remembered long after preaching is forgotten. In the sense of, just someone, hey, I'm your parent, do this, versus building that same concept into a story.
Exactly. Storytelling has always been used throughout culture as we know it to carry information. Story carries metaphor. Story carries facts and figures into places that other people may not be ready for to listen to if it was just a big pile of info. And storytelling allows stuff to come in the door, come in the front door, where it's not allowed to do that maybe, and data's not allowed to do that in normal places.
And we know that bonding, when we get back, maybe Dr. Karam, you could talk a little bit about bonding that takes place and the value of this as well, and that attachment. And we hear a lot about attachment theory, and just all of this helps in that kind of situation. Again, what is that favorite story you remember that your parent told you? Or did your parents ever tell you a story? 571-2428. 571-2428. I'm psychologist Dr. Stan Frager. Dr. Eli Karam.